When a customer comes to me at the bank, I want them to feel like it's on a personal level. A lot of my existing customers, I feel like we're more family than just a customer-banker relationship, and that I'm doing everything I can to help them. And when they leave my desk, I want them to say, wow, that Shelly Kearns at Happy State Bank really cares about me, and I want them to tell their friends and family that.
Let's call this meeting to order, and I'll turn it over to the city manager. Introduce everybody.
If we could today, we have several guests with us to walk us through their 2011-2012 budgets. I don't see Vicki, is Carol?
Yes, she said she would. Let me text her.
Well, that's good. We're not driving. She can text. Let's begin with the Amarillo Convention and Visitors Council, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Jerry Holt, and he's got a group here with him as well. Jerry?
Y'all will get your books and turn to tab number 1, please. Summary sheet there. And we'll go through the top line, and we'll be happy to answer any specific questions related to any particular programs a little bit later. You can see we do have an increase for this next year, which is good. We'll be at $2,324,982, which has allowed us to increase some of our programs. The area of personal services, we only budgeted a 1.2% salary increase, and we have not had a salary increase for 2 years. So that's a pretty nominal increase.
1.5.
Yes, sir.
1.2 or
1.5? I'm sorry, 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah, I said 1.2, I meant 1.5. And actually a decrease, as you can see, in the allocation area. And then the bulk of the increases were put into the programs. Because this year we had a decrease, so we put some of those monies back into the various operating units like communications, convention sales, convention servicing, tourism, film, arts, increase the funding that the different arts groups will give. And of course, a large increase went into advertising, since we are a destination marketing organization. We take that term pretty seriously and put a lot of money back into advertising. And we'll be increasing our radio advertising, and it went across the board. We'll increase our radio advertising, our print advertising. We're going to have a new campaign for the first time next year in Denver, Colorado. We did some research, and we're getting a good amount of traffic coming out of Colorado going to Texas. So it will be an intercept theory.
Well, that's a reversal.
Yeah, there's about 15,000 people in Colorado that request Texas information every year. And we've been mailing them a visitor guide, and we did some research and mailed to those consumers. And about, see, of the group we mailed to, about 75% came to Texas. And of that group, about 50% stopped in Amarillo to eat, get gas, or whatever. And about 25% spent the night. And that's just basically just mailing them a visitor guide. So we're going to go in with a pretty aggressive radio campaign and also a Facebook campaign next year into the Denver market. And ironically, that traffic flow peaks in March, April, as opposed to the summer. So it's kind of a little bit different than you would expect as far as
It's a mud season in Colorado.
Yeah. And so, you know, they're and plus, I think their spring breaks a little bit later, and it's more towards the end of March, 1st of April, as opposed to ours is in March. So we're going to be a little bit more aggressive in that market, and that's where some of that increase is going to go to.
Jerry, I think it's important to note, one thing we track over at Convention Visitors Council is obviously Amarillo's not a destination point, it's past through the point. So Jerry and the gang have done everything they possibly can to get people to stay here more. And that's promoting Powder Hurricane and our attractions. And although it doesn't seem like a whole lot, that stat's gone from 1 to 1.5. And half doesn't sound, so how's a person stay for half a day? Well, the opposite or not. Just more people are spending a day or 2 or 3 here and taking advantage of the attractions. So they've done a good job, and although last year was a record year, I believe in hotel motel tax collections, year to date, we're getting ready to wrap up another year, we're up 8% year to date this year, so we're very excited. So it's another good year.
The hoteliers said that they attribute about $200 a day to every extra day people stay.
How much?
About $200 a day just for I don't know if that's just hotel and food or what.
Interesting thing is, we hold our own in the international market primarily because of Route 66. We're in a lot of tours, and most of them are individuals touring, coming from Germany and the UK. And international visitors spend about 3 or 4 times what a domestic visitor will spend. So, of course, they vacation longer. They typically have 3 to 4 weeks when they're traveling across America. So we stay and some of the extra money we're getting next year will be going back into some of those markets we went out of this year.
And the coach traffic's still holding very
Yeah, our
strong.
motor coach traffic is still holding pretty good for group tours and in motor coaches. We're still tracking over 400 motor coaches a year. And because of the change in demographics, those numbers have come down in a lot of markets because that's an aging population that likes to travel by motor coach.
Jerry, your folks are telling me that if we had a really high-end dude ranch here, that we could
Yeah.
bring in as many, especially Japanese and Germans,
Yeah.
as we could get in.
Yeah, Bandera gets a lot of that business now because they do have a lot of great dude ranches, but you're right. That's a real niche market, particularly the Germans and Japanese really like, but especially the Germans and the Brits. So we work at it while we have, we do have a good base of Western heritage, and of course we play on that really hard.
Pretty hard to get away from
I was about to say, Clovis is really good
it.
there.
It's hard to get away from the crowd.
And then
It's been a long budget year. Thank y'all for your attention and patience.
As you see, a nominal decrease in special projects, that's funds that we use to help support events out at the Amarillo National Center. And then just a very nominal increase in the visitor center budget. That's pretty much stayed the same over the years. But like I said earlier, we just took the increase and spread it through all the operating departments. So everybody, because all contribute to the piece of the total pie of the visitors that come to Amarillo, whether it's domestic visitors, leisure travelers, business travelers, or conventions, events, and groups.
Here, let me stop you for a second.
Yes, sir.
At the visitor center, are you still getting good traffic?
We'll run about
That is
11,000 to
amazing.
12,000 people a year, and what's interesting, every time I go by there and look at the logbook, there's always sign-ins from somebody overseas. You know, almost routinely.
Because that is so often, unless they're here at an activity in
Yeah.
the city.
Now, we let the state handle the pass-through, and then, we get the ones that are actually in the city, or they're going up to Colorado, via 287. But the interesting thing is the number of internationals that stop in. And
How do you promote that? I mean, what makes them come to the center?
we have signage on both I-40 and I-27, the state signage, and that's the primary means of communicating that. And of course, it's on our website, and it's on our mobile site as well.
Have you ever been to Cadillac? You should just walk out the Cadillac Ranch. There's usually like 5 languages being spoken around it. It's really interesting.
Did we
No,
get
ma'am,
the
I
sign?
haven't.
Well, I'll take you on a tour.
I know where it is.
Al, Cadillac is unbelievable. If y'all go ever travel, there's gonna be 7, 8, 9, 10 cars there all the time.
I went by there 4 times in the last 2 months, and there was 18 cars there almost every time. I counted, I thought, God, what is
I'm the
going on?
unofficial
10
curator.
at night?
Uh-huh. of
This
the
is the
Cadillac Ranch.
unofficial
Well-
curator.
I am. I walk around telling the story all the time.
Well, at our last meeting, I said we gotta take advantage of those folks. So what we're trying to pull off, we're going to Stanley, get one of Stanley's signs and one of those scans, and you pull up that sign as you walk Cadillac Ranch, it's gonna show all the attractions in Amarillo.
Oh, that-
If Stanley allows us to do it. If not, I told Jerry, we're gonna do something. We're gonna have to stand there, we're gonna have something. It's unbelievable, the traffic. We're gonna take advantage of that.
And we're gonna have some
Jim, I'll
with the
take
QR code on it.
I came in the other night about 10:30, and there were lights, flashlights out there.
It's unreal.
It's really
It's
interesting.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll catch Stanley on a good day.
There we go.
We'll see how that works out. Well, that's kind of just a quick overview. Be glad to get into any specifics, or if you have any questions.
I want to tell you that until I served on the CDC, I did not believe in a downtown hotel, and that was absolutely turned around 180 degrees by what I learned serving on the committee, and especially from Greg Bynum. I mean, the guy just kept, you got to look at this, you got to look at this. And then you all taking me through the series of things you do for conventions. In that vein, what are you doing now to plan to fill that hotel? Can you share with us what your increased activity will be?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm putting together a document I was going to share with you in the next week or two. Gary and I have been talking, and we're going to incorporate an entire plan to not only talk about the hotel, but the entire downtown development plan, from creating a Meet Smart, Meet Local campaign to get local leads from people instead of taking your meeting outside of Amarillo. Or if you go to a meeting that's held outside of Amarillo, let us know about it, and we will try to bring it here. So an entire in-depth ad campaign, sales, covering all areas, sales, promotions, website, internet, the whole thing. And you'll see a detail on that within a week.
Working 3 and 4 years ahead of time for conventions to invite them here, how many would you say we could entice that would much more than fill the 175 guaranteed rooms they would have administratively there, where you start to fill I-40 or at least affect that?
Well, a lot of the groups, we try to deal with the larger groups anyway. The dynamic this hotel is going to present, though, that'll be a little bit different. It's going to have so much meeting space of its own. So it's going to have a subset we've never been able to sell, which is exciting as well. Because with 22,000 square foot of meeting space in that one property, we don't have any property in town that comes close to that. So in the past, a lot of those groups have had to go to 2 or 3 other hotels and then meet in the Civic Center, where those groups would be able to meet just at the new property. And so whether it's doing that or overflowing to other properties, that presents a lot of other opportunities that we just simply haven't had in the past.
So we've given you the right combination to sell.
Yes.
Paul, one of the things I told Jerry, and we're going to get through the Chamber Barbecue, I told him to set up and look at other cities that have established a downtown hotel adjacent to the Civic Center, and we're scoping that out right now. And me and Jerry and the sales force are going to take trips to these cities and find out exactly how they went about marketing their new hotel. I said, let's get a feel of that, may give us some ideas as well. So the Jerry and his gang, they contact how many different groups, Jerry? Thousands of groups that we work with. So, we'll unturn all those stones and find them out there.
Good.
I would think there would be quite a market for even wedding reception business.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that would be one of the primary uses of properties.
You're right, Dr. Reed said, and of course, the sales force at the hotel is going to be aggressively going after business like that on their own. And so the quicker we're able to get specific info about the hotel, the quicker they can start accepting leads and giving us quotes, rates, and room blocks. That's going to be good. We met Sunday night with a group of about 200 Corvette owners, and they're going to be coming through in a national Corvette tour in August of 2014. And they're either going to stay out on the west side, plus around the Holiday Inn, or they're going to stay downtown. They have not decided yet because there's plus and minuses for that group. Because it's still the planner's final decision as to where they stay. Because from our perspective, we just want to get them to the city. Yes, sir. And they still make the final decision. But that's just one example, because they're going to need a total room block of about 250 or 300 rooms. So, well, if they do it out west, we'll do it in 3 or 4 hotels. If they decide to come downtown, we'll do it in probably 3 properties. So, as that progresses and as we get more information, but we still have to have specific rates, specific lots,
Sure.
how many pieces, how many double doubles, and things like that.
Great. Any other questions?
Good job.
Good budget.
Paul, can I mention one other thing? I just wrapped it up, but as y'all know, the Chamber Barbecue is happening a week from Thursday. And it's a 10-year anniversary of 911. So a lot of the cooking teams, I talked to Kirk Suter out there who does the meat for Tyson. He's going to donate the briskets. And I've called Chief Taylor and Chief Ross. And we're going to have, and we'd like for y'all to come as well, the cooks meeting at 12 noon that Thursday, and Paul, I'd like you to be there. We're going to have plaques we're going to present to the police chief and the fire chief, thanking them for the outstanding service they do for our city, and they've been hard at work, we all know, with all the fires we've had, and policemen are just doing a great job around the clock. So in commemoration of the 10-year anniversary, we're going to present plaques at the cooks meeting at 12 noon. And then I've arranged, we've got some food donated, we're going to feed all the police officers and all the firemen.
Great.
At between 12 and 1:30.
Great.
So we'd love for y'all to be there for that presentation. we're pretty excited. Both the chiefs were very excited about it. So
Good.
I think it's a good way to recognize them in your anniversary. Anybody, you want to come on down. Want the media there cutting it. We're getting the press release out. We think that's a huge deal. They've done a wonderful job for us.
Yeah, they are.
See you there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
See you.
See you.
See y'all.
Get more business.
Bye.
To go get more business.
And then buy tickets for the barbecue, of course, afterwards. Okay. See y'all.
Bye, Tom.
You see, if we could, we'll ask Beth and Gabe to come up and run through the center city.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I brought pretty pictures of how downtown is looking so much better with your help.
Take one on the phone.
Oh, that's
You think they'll really have one?
Thank you.
Holding out. Yes.
Guys, that's a change of season, so they would dry it
Okay, just-
Well, it matches the banners. I like it.
out. Right on.
It's beautiful.
We've had an amazing year. Thanks to you, we've had an amazing year. As you can see, I started out with the Courtyard by Marriott. We had an amazing grand opening party, January 1, which just started this year off in an amazing way. Also in your book, there's the overview of our operating budget and the facts and figures. But I included a page in there too of our partnerships because we've got so many more partnerships this year. One, I'm going to steal from your visual aid here. One thing we did this year that was so neat, thanks to Commissioner Green and her staff, we partnered with Amarillo College and we did a brochure called The Sounds of Summer. And I got with Larry Offerdahl from Parks and Rec for Starlight Theater, Janie Singleton for the Botanical Gardens, and even Evelyn Ecker from Canyon Main Street. And what we did, we put together in one brochure all the free or low-cost outdoor concerts for the whole summer. And when anyone said, there's nothing to do in Amarillo, we just whipped out this brochure and said, you're nuts, because all you have to do is take a lawn chair and enjoy this. And I was proud of it because we've all been doing these concerts for a long time, but this was finally pulling it together in a partnership. And that's what downtown is really trying to do is build partnerships. So I wanted you to see that. You also have in your book a list of our membership, the people and businesses who contribute to make our organization strong. And then some beautiful pictures of our facade grants. Some are still works in progress, but I want you to see up close what we're trying to do downtown with your help. We're again asking for $60,000 for that part of the program. And then in the very end, there are some event pictures. That's one thing Center City really tries hard to do is have a lot of events to bring people downtown. And we are already planning our electric light parade. It's going to be amazing this year. We're partnering with the Globe News for their Empty Stocking concert. That's going to be right after our parade, and it's going to make a full family event. So we have a lot going on.
Very good work.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think another note.
I know a photographer.
Yes.
That's helpful.
Beth also put together a deal that was another free tour if any of y'all were able to attend for the churches of downtown. Of course, First Baptist opening their deal. It ended, I think, before the construction of Polk Street began, but it was a real neat deal. It had very high attendance.
We did. This was the Downtown Historic Church Tour. We had 5 downtown churches. And you know, we say downtown is a place to live, work, play, learn, and worship. We take the worship very seriously. There's 4,000 people who come downtown every Sunday to worship. And we took advantage that some of our most beautiful historical buildings are churches. And in October, going along with KCV, another partnership with their God in America series on PBS, we did Lunch and Learn at 5 churches, and we averaged between 50 and 70 people at each Lunch and Learn. I know some of you, Paul, you came to some,
Yes.
and it was exciting because you just never know. You throw a party, you never know who's going to come. But we had all these churches involved, showing off their beautiful campus and their great history. And so we did it again in May for National Historic Preservation Month. And once again, averaged between 50 and 60 people each time. So we're going to try to do this again next May. And it's just a fun way to show off these beautiful historic churches, because if you don't worship downtown or haven't been downtown in a while, you are amazed at the beautiful art, stained glass windows, and history of those places. And it's important to me because it shows that to have a healthy downtown, you need all of those elements, and that's one thing we're really trying to do.
I think Beth does a great job, that being a perfect example of a new innovative idea, I'd say, to promote downtown and drag people to downtown. Hopefully many people that maybe even don't think about going downtown or you know, wouldn't consider it, especially as part of their afternoon lunch, you might say, like High Noon provides and things like that. But of course, we have the church tour, the High Noon, the Polk Street Block Party, the Electric Light Parade, and I know I'm missing a few more items that again draw great attention to downtown and the improvements of downtown, and so a lot of the city gets to see that.
Finally, I went to Central Church of Christ and then to the St. Mary's tour.
That's right.
You're being very modest about the crowd, because St. Mary's was closer to 200. And
Everybody
Yeah, I
was
missed
packed.
it was packed. Well, you were out of town that day.
Yeah.
And then the Central Church of Christ, there weren't 80 people there, there was so people really from all different faiths trying to discover a little bit and see the history. It was very interesting.
Talk to me about Noon on the Square, because it's, I don't know, but it seemed to me that it was awfully crowded this
Oh my
year. Is it more
gosh.
crowded than
It is growing and growing.
Yeah.
People came out in 100-degree weather to have a sandwich with us on the lawn. I couldn't believe it. And when it started, the people who helped start it, like Wes Reeves and some of the early board members, they say at first it was about 20 to 25 people, and now we average between 500 and 600 people.
Yeah.
The day I had Chick-fil-A, I sold out. Sold out of food. I was having to refer people to the Panhandlers across the street because the Panhandlers is a cafe, not Panhandlers, but the Panhandler Cafe, and it was great. They were full too. But it's so neat. Our local musicians donate their time, and they do it out of love for the community. People of all ages, generations, you could see a great cross-section out there of our community. You don't have to buy our lunch. A lot of people would bring a Happy Meal or whatever and bring a picnic, but we would have between 500 and 600 people every week, and this was even during the construction, which we think is such an amazing historical preservation project at the Potter County Courthouse. And even with a few of the construction hassles and different things, people still came out.
And
And
they
we
would
had an
park and
amazing.
walk for a few blocks.
They were, and it was an amazing event. We're already planning for next year, every Wednesday in June and July, and it's one of the most fun things families can do because it's free, it's a picnic, and it's a great way for me to show off downtown. So
I
we
think
love High Noon.
We do. That event specifically had two good attributes to it. One is it's not a profit center for Center City. It's a deal that we do at best break even, and we provide it that way so that it is, you know, our costs are barely covered. In fact, we have to guarantee a certain amount of meals to each one of those food vendors that come and provide those lunches. So if we have an offbeat day, Wednesday, then and we don't have as many people show up, we do cover that cost. But more than that has also, Beth has told me that has huge recognition on the Main Street committee side of things. In fact, I think it's the largest outdoor deal in the state right now.
It is. We're part of Texas Main Street. As you'll see, the last pocket in your folder is our certification. We always strive to have national and state certification from our Main Street programs. And other towns, even with comparable population, they don't get that kind of crowd out for their noon concert series. And we can be very proud of that. When Mike Head, Potter County Facilities Manager, when he lets you go up in the elevator and look down on the crowd, it's amazing. And The Texas Historical Commission loves us so much that they were there a couple of years ago when we had a high noon, and they are going to extend the concrete steps. These are non-historical, so it doesn't affect the courthouse. They're going to extend that, and we're going to have our own little Esplanade amphitheater for the future. So, because they saw how we were using that green space, and they said we can make it better. So it's really exciting. Next year's going to be great.
That's right.
And so you'll know about the Downtown Hotel. They were sold out the night of block party. They had a great experience. We didn't know how it would work to throw a party around a hotel, and it worked great. The guests loved it, everyone loved it, and they were sold out. So the Marriott loved it.
The ownership is very happy with how that event takes place.
Good.
Yeah, no
But there were
kidding.
some.
What was that?
That's right.
So did they just go through the alley to get out of the parking lot, or what did they do?
Well, we did. We fenced around the parking building to an extent so people could kind of make a U-turn, and then we had shuttle parking for them on the Santa Fe parking lot. So.
Great.
Now, is the Marriott sold out a lot because through Beth's generosity, places like Amarillo College and WT got some free rooms for our guests, our speakers coming in this year through at the Marriott? Thank you. But you know, the issue is you've got to book them soon because that place is sold out a lot.
They sell out. What Commissioner Green's talking about is when they had their formal grand opening, the Marriott gave $35,000 back to the community, some in cash grants and some in rooms for some of our schools and nonprofits. And they gave you rooms to use however you wanted to, you know, and they are booked a lot. Their business model of aiming toward the business traveler is really working. They're also an overflow hotel for some other Marriott properties on I-40. And then when we have these big events like Susan Komen Race for the Cure coming up, different things, that's a place everybody wants to be because it's downtown.
That's great.
But it's exciting. They've been great corporate partners to work with, and you can be really proud of them. Oh, and that's the other cool thing. In November, we find out for sure that I've nominated them for the Best Adaptive Reuse Award from the Texas Downtown Association, and we are one of 2 semifinalists for that award throughout Texas, and we'll find out in November if we win that award because I'm so proud of their adaptive reuse.
What's the other nomination?
I don't know, but they can't be as cool as us. I think it's something in Seguin. I got to figure that out. But.
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's exciting because that would give us some more statewide recognition of our wonderful property. So you can tell I'm sort of kind of excited.
Well, you worked a lot on the details of that property as they worked through problems and things with energy and hookups.
That was a big partnership. It took a lot of people. XL Energy, it took everyone.
They're very pleased with what you did for them.
We're excited.
Well, none of this could happen without y'all's help, and we
That's right.
greatly appreciate y'all's involvement over the years, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to present this today, and we hope that this partnership continues on for many more years, and we want to be good stewards of what you give us, and be a good asset to the community.
Have been. We appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Any questions on the budget? Once again, they have given you a level budget consistent with what they have done for years.
We've not asked for any more.
So, very good.
We're trying to raise the rest of it ourselves.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll ask Mr. Buzz Davis.
Next.
So far, Beth and Buzz are running neck to neck for brevity.
Uh-oh.
They're saving paper, they're protecting the environment.
Appreciate that.
They're doing a great job. I'm like,
So great.
Well, they're trying, but there's been some pockets of resistance.
it's just,
Where are you talking about here, maybe?
There's no furl to that. There's only one pocket.
Pick on the old guy.
Okay,
Kick him around.
okay.
Well, we try to keep our budget requests short and to the point because it really doesn't give you a great sense of what
all those dollars are used for. And that's contained in our annual plan of work every year, which we always send over, and it's always on our website, as everything else is. But as you know, the Amarillo EDC has been in business for 21 plus years now, and it's been a great opportunity over the years to grow the community, grow all kinds of things that produce jobs and all the other things that make the world as positive as it is. Our annual budget is broken down in a pretty simplistic way. We certainly have one primary funding source, and that's the sales tax revenue that we received that was put into place back in the 1990 time frame for the 4B corporation that we operate here for this community. But we break our budget down into three basic parts: an administrative budget, promotional budget, and then project support. Beyond that, the remaining dollars from our annual revenue stream, which this year will be about $15 million, goes into the project budget. And that is whatever is already on the drawing board or in the pipeline or whatever might come along. And those dollars are used not only to do incentives and other things with the project activity, but also to take care of the debt service on bond issues that we have outstanding. The budget we presented to you is identical to last year's budget. We're comfortable that we can operate within those parameters. I will tell you that with $283,500 in marketing and $160,000 in prospect development, for a total of $443,000 in change, we have people from our office all over the world, all over the United States, marketing to business and industrial opportunities out there. And while we break it down between branding and lead generation and also project development and prospect development, that's really more art than it is science. Sometimes it's more this than that. But between what we market with on our website, what we do on our recruitment missions, what we do in trade shows for groups like the WIA, World Wind Energy Expo every year, the World Ag Expo, which is in Tulare, California in February timeframe, SEMA, which is car parts, all kinds, that anything that can be made anywhere in the world can be made here. So we follow a lot of those. We do make sure that our marketing strategy reflects what this community is capable of in the way of an attraction perspective. If we were out spending a lot of time and effort on trying to attract biotech companies, we wouldn't get very far because we don't have the infrastructure to support them yet. But if we're talking about manufacturing of different sorts, logistics, aviation, aerospace, food technology, and so forth, we're good at that. This community is good at that and bringing those kind of jobs and opportunities to the area. So that's what we keep our focus on. Above and beyond our administrative budget and our promotional budget, you see at the very end what we call project support. That's where we keep the dollars housed for the Enterprise Challenge and the things that we do with the Enterprise Network, the administrative challenge for us. Pantech's already covered relations. Those are the gentlemen in Austin and DC that help us and have for dozens of years now with making sure we retain Pantech and what it does here. Our involvement with the Chamber and certainly reports to Plains whose dues we pay on behalf of the city, which we're pleased to do. But all those put together kind of funds the overall program, operation, marketing, and other things. And I'll stop there and take a breath and take some questions.
I just have a question. How many on staff?
We have, let's see, 7 full-time EDC staff, and we have 2 people that are in our office, and part of our staff that are really dedicated to the Texas Panhandle Regional Development Corporation, and then Doug Nelson shares his time between the 2. Not reflected in our budget here because it's an odd thing to put in, but we contract with TPRDC to provide staff services, and they pay us $175,000 a year. That covers those 2 staff people and a big piece of Doug's. But we have 1 administrative person, myself, 3 people that are in recruitment, retention, business development, 1 is marketing communication services, and the one that's financed, and there's that program and others.
Buzz, on the prospect development, ROI stands for what?
ROI is called Research on Investment. It is a contract with a firm that does prospect development for us, lead generation. We've had them under contract now for 4 years. They're actually a company that's housed in Canada, but they have a methodology and a way of doing lead generation across the development is unique. In my experience, in a lot of years, they do a really good job.
And so that $70,000 a year you pay them, and they in return give us leads?
Leads, yes, ma'am.
And it's the $60,000 under recruitment missions, that's all for traveling?
Travel and anything that's involved with getting us to, or getting them here, or getting us there.
Either direction, them coming in.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Well, we try to keep an efficient budget in place, and there's so many places to be and so many things to do. Try to make sure we're laser focused and not just shotgunning around all the time, but try to make things a little bit for our community that can grow.
How's a new spec building?
We're getting ready to launch that. I think that's going to be a good thing for us, but when we're ready, we'll bring it.
I sure hope it doesn't take as long as it took to turn the last one.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be not quite so coy about that, because you never know how it's going to be, but, you know, sometimes a good plan comes together.
There you go.
We like flat budgets.
Good job.
Well, the ROI, good question, ROI, it is the kind of thing that we could have a person on staff on the phone all day calling people. These people know how to do it. And they have a methodology that really works. I've worked over the last 30+ years with a number of firms to do that. It's kind of good. And what we end up with it is qualified leads that we have to follow up on. We have a database now from 4 years of about 200 to 300 leads that not all going to happen this year or next year, but they will happen one day somewhere. We'll work on them every year.
So Buzz, this is an overview, and did you say that we'll get a more detailed budget, or that we can go online and get a more detailed budget?
Now, I was talking about our plan of work.
Oh, plan of work.
This is as detailed as our budget is.
Okay.
This is the budget we presented for our.
And then a plan of work is online? Okay.
It kind of catalogs all the different types of initiatives, efforts, and places that we do.
Good job.
Thanks, Buzz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Well, appreciate it. Mayor, if we could, let's move to tax increment reinvestment zone number 1. And we have Ms. Carol Austin here to speak to us today amidst the changing music.
I am a substitute for Richard Brown, who's tied up today.
Great deal.
Talk to him. Thank you, Jen. I'll be sure and tell him, but don't, you know, he still needs to come see you
I
guys.
think this will be a change.
Well, he's pretty, he's worked a lot of hours on downtown. And
Oh, yeah.
I imagine he's needed to work some, so I'm trying to help him out where I can. My buddy Dean Frigo and I have worked on numbers together for many
Long time,
years.
haven't we?
Long time. So I called him this morning and I said, Richard asked me to be there and I have the budget, but I haven't had any chance to talk to him. So Dean and I kind of talked it over, and he presents this to us at our board meeting, and I'll let him just kind of run through it if that's all right with you. And then I'll be glad to add a couple of things, answer any questions.
Okay, excuse me. If we could go under this column for revised estimate operating. The TERS began the year with $775,000 in cash and investments. The participations, $451,800, and next year there'll be $472,000. They have went up every year, which is good because not all increments increment. Then their budget this year is $312,000, and that includes $225,000 in community projects, and they should end this fiscal year with almost $920,000, just shy of $1 million. And then The Vineyards project that's on your agenda today, they would pay that out of this $225,000 for community projects. That's what they would use those funds for. They did issue $2.2 million in bonds this year, and they've done the Fisk project out of that, the Potter County Courthouse Streetscape project, and Polk Street Methodist Church. And they, after you subtract those, they still should have about $1 million left for streetscape. Next year, we'll have $477,000 in revenues. We'll still have $100,000 budgeted for community projects, but we're going to have to make a rebate of about $50,000 to the Marriott. We agreed that if they would improve the property, we would rebate them 90% of the tax that they pay. So we're estimating next year we'll make our first payment, and that'll be about $50,000. The bonds that we issued, the debt service is $175,750 next year, and this, we're proposing a new debt issuance that'll be about $120,000 a year. And in order to do this, since we may as well share the vision, we would probably, the TERS would probably need to borrow funds from several of the city's different funds. The insurance fund, there's others, where we'd probably need to loan the money to the tiers and they would pay it back to the city. The advantages of that is we wouldn't require a reserve fund, and if you did a debt issuance, they would require a reserve fund. And we could also structure the payment to be one annual payment a year to coincide when they get their tiers participations in. And I think we can make it an attractive interest rate for the city while still giving the tiers a very attractive interest rate. So we're hoping to build a win-win here. If we can do all that, that would generate another $1.5 million of bond proceeds, plus the $1 million they have remaining. They would dedicate all that towards the downtown streetscape project. Did I go too fast, too slow, or?
Go through that last.
Okay.
Where's the-
They've got $1 million remaining for streetscape right now.
117.
Yep.
That.
And if we did another $1.5 million, the $120,000 would support about $1.5 million debt issuance. That would give them a little over $2.5 million for downtown streetscape projects. They'd still have $100,000 for community projects like the Vineyards that come up now and again.
Where's the 2.5? I don't see that.
It'd be the
1.5 not, hasn't been done.
Yeah, the $120,000 would support about $1.5 million.
Okay, and then 120,000 would be, okay.
Well, and the thing I want everybody to understand about the tourist board on this, it was debated, it was discussed, you know, what was the best thing we could do with this money right now. And we were unanimous in saying it needs to go to streetscape for this initial project. Well, that means we're not going to have a whole lot of bucks to spend for the next few years. But there ain't going to be anything to spend it on anyway unless we get this first one done. So we're very happy to put in every penny that we could call forth for streetscape. And it's going to take a lot of streetscape. When you look at the plans, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be beautiful. And we're really, really proud to be able to kind of put our signature on a lot of that. And along with Center City, they're going to put some money in that they earned inch by inch, dime by dime, dollar by beer dollar.
I guess one of the things that's a little confusing to me is you're talking about spending basically the ending cash you have in 2010 plus bonding out another $1.5 million. Yet we still have the number down here of ending cash of
Almost $1 million. So
That's
they'll still
what's
have,
actually there.
yes.
Yes.
They'll still have a very healthy reserve for another project.
For other streetscape if people ask.
For
for
whatever.
those funds.
Yeah.
An opportunity that.
We just don't know what's going to come
On
along.
the back.
Okay, good, because that's what we're
Yeah,
worried
So
about.
I think the tiers will be still well positioned.
I don't think it's going to be very long.
You
And the
relieve-
increment's gone up
Yeah,
every
4 or
year.
5 years.
You relieve the debt service reserve for what was going to be Potter County at the maximum. The part that we saved from what we initially reserved.
Yeah, we were reserving almost $100,000 a year, And we didn't spend it, so that's what's contributed towards the
Right.
775,000 we have now.
And that, you're not reserving that anymore, you just got the debt service part of it.
Yeah, we're just
The real
paying
deal.
it.
Okay.
We actually had originally pledged to Potter County, I think it was 1.3
Mhm.
million.
1.3 to
And
1.5.
ended up that they were able to do all four sides of the courthouse and brought it in at this $943,000. So the rest of it they gave back to us. They have no strings on it, no ties to it anymore. So it's available to use on other projects.
The original commitment, I think, was a general 1.5 we could go up to, and then it got down because their proposal, and it went down again. So while it was raised slightly at the end, it really traveled downward in the
Well,
process.
and Paul, you might remember it was raised slightly because they're going to get to do the
Right.
east side. They didn't think there was going to be room initially to do the east side, and a couple of other tweaks that
They
they
didn't
did.
think historically they could do the east side, and then they were able to do that.
Didn't think there was going to be room to put in any of the streetscape, but we're, certainly wish we had 200,000 instead of 100, but I don't think it's going to be that long until we're back in the business of having enough money to do some other projects.
But look at where we are, because we started out with zero money.
And there are a
Yeah,
lot.
last year we had a
Yeah.
deficit.
And
Yeah.
it's really, we have a 2007 budget, and people that know about TERS are really surprised when they find out that we have had the ability to raise this much money already.
Wasn't it true that we were one of the only tiers in the state that had an increase in valuation this
Yes.
last year? Almost the rest were either flat or declined, and we were increased.
Yeah, I think Keller was
Went
banking
upside
on it,
down.
yeah, going up, and it went down.
Down.
And they issued that on it.
So we've been modest about our projections.
Well, we've got probably
That's
one of the
obligation.
best number
No.
crunchers in the world
Which one?
sitting right here.
These are the obligations.
He never let you, this
This
one's
is the
too, they
remaining
never let
balance.
you get much
That's
trouble.
$1 million cash, this debt issuance.
And Dean, we don't know, go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to make sure I understand where all the numbers are coming from here.
that
This is $1 million left out of the initial debt issuance.
Of the 2,232,000.
Okay.
Curious to see how.
The other money allows you to bond forward another $1.5 million.
Numbers fast, well.
Which just
catch up
doesn't
with
show
numbers
up
as
on
fast
the
as
sheet.
they should, but
Right.
it
Doesn't need to.
Exactly the same
Right.
as where the numbers are. And so we don't know the terms yet of payback for the city, like how long
Be
and what the.
based on what's appropriate for the market at that time. And we don't know the exact sequence of when that needs to be issued and funded.
And are we gonna be asked to approve that as a commission?
Yeah, I assumed a 20-year debt issue. And we've got some long-term insurance funds and stuff that we could borrow out of that. It'd be a pretty good investment for the insurance fund, too.
But we know we can cover it.
Mm-hmm.
These numbers show we can
Oh,
cover
yeah.
it. We're just gonna have to get the final numbers approved.
Well, I'm assuming it will be at a better rate than what we can go out and invest in, too.
Mhm.
I would
Well, I think we can make a
It's
win.
not hard to do right now.
Yeah, not the truth.
Well,
Beat 60 points.
yeah, but I think most everything we do ends up coming back to pretty much a creature that the city created and oversees.
As far as mechanics, I think we would probably get a proposal from the tiers board and bring it up to the commission for approval. Is that what you had in mind, Marcus?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think they've done a really good job with money.
We're doing a great job.
You make sure we do.
Yeah.
And Dean controls the purse strings anyway.
These are the controls.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Carol, for all your work.
Say something.
The rest of it.
Thanks, Carol.
And if you notice some of the projects she's talking about, Center City's also a partner. In your book, there's a picture of the Vineyard Manor, the Vineyard project she's talking about. And I think it's kind of neat to show us working together.
It's a good partnership.
Mayor, the other one we have on the agenda today is the Amarillo Potter Events Venue District. With your permission, we'd like to hold that over and pick it up next week.
Okay.
And at the same time, we will pick up Amarillo Hospital District, Downtown Amarillo Inc. for a total of 3, and I think, Dean, that covers us. All the component budgets.
That's all we can come up with.
Give us a week, we'll make up more numbers though.
Good.
Oh, good.
The 6th, and it is your evening meeting. It is your evening meeting. On the same agenda for action, you will have resolutions for these other budgets, for 3 of them, for tiers, Convention and Visitors Council, and Economic Development Corporation. You'll have resolutions approving those, and set them out of the way. You have a contract that gets approved with Center City, and we'll just keep rolling that. Ideally, by the 20th of September, we're done with everybody and everything. Okay. All right, moving to our next favorite budget, the city budget. Any discussion for this week, or jump into the agenda?
I don't have any other questions. Anybody have any that have come up?
No.
You'll have your 2 tax rate hearings next week. Those are not action items. Those are the opportunity, though, for the public to approach and discuss and provide any comments that they'd like you to consider when we begin the following week with taking action on both the budget and the tax rate. Two actions, 13th and 20th.
Stated
Okay.
in the letter.
As stated in the letter.
Okay.
All right. Mayor, with your permission, we'll jump into the budget.
The agenda?
Yeah, the agenda.
I was thinking we've done that.
I really want to talk about this book.
You do.
No, we don't want to talk about it.
We're proud of that book, but
That's only volume 1.
Mayor, I was abstaining from those 2. Thank you.
Bye-bye, thanks, Ben.
Oh.
Thank all y'all.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes, you too. Yes, you love it.
Mayor, agenda item number 2, ordinance 7293. This is a rezoning on Washington Street and Wolfland, so just south of I-40 there. Change from residential district 3 to neighborhood service district. And Mr. Shaw is going to take us through that item.
I had never heard of a neighborhood service.
I was going to ask the
Me neither.
same question.
Are you creating something new here, Kelly, on us?
Well, apparently I'm not creating anything.
No signal. Only use hand signals. There we go.
This particular, I wanted to show you the slide just because it's a little, this is a request that kind of gets involved with some adjacent residential property. The request that was before the Planning and Zoning Commission and before you today is to change. This is a toot and totem that's currently on the corner of Wolfland and Washington. There's this Wolfland Elementary School. There's Toot and Totem. What's being requested, this is on general retail. Toot and Totem has bought these 3 lots, and they're wanting to rezone. Currently, though, they're zoned residential 3. They're wanting to rezone these 3 lots to neighborhood services. The reason they requested neighborhood services instead of general retail is when we were visiting with them. General retail allows some uses that may be considered a little bit more impactful on residential properties, because if that expands, and that's what they're wanting to do, is expand the footprint of this store here to include these 3 lots. There are certain things that, neighborhood services would still allow the convenience store, but it would exclude other types of uses, namely a car wash or something like that really makes a lot of noise. And
So neighborhood services is more restrictive.
much more restrictive as far as uses allowed. So that's what we recommended, and they agreed to that. Basically, this has a couple of components in that they're wanting to expand the store. They're wanting to put in their new prototype store. It's a little bit bigger store, but not much. But an expanded parking lot. Of course, with all of that would come with an upgrade in facilities. It would require landscaping. It would require screening along this southern property line. Right now what you have is the older store, lots of asphalt, very, very congested. I don't know if any of y'all ever been here, but it's not the safest thing there is. There's cars, trying to get this fuel island right here is on the street basically, and it's just not a real safe environment. So bigger lot to have more maneuverability and those kinds of things. But to do that, you need to rezone these 3 lots.
But they are not going to put a car wash in there. That's part of
No.
this.
What, can you go through kind of a list of a few things that would restrict? Is that too hard? Like what else besides a car wash?
Restaurant. A lot of
A
people are
restaurant
concerned
can
with
do-
restaurant smells and trash and those kinds of things.
Okay.
The car wash, the lube center.
None of that stuff can be there.
None of that.
Tattoo parlor,
No, it could be, no.
bar.
And it backs up right now to some office building, doesn't it?
Did
You
you
need
read
like
that
some
before?
insurance company.
It's the,
You're,
the
I'm
insurance
looking at the
company.
map.
yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Insurance people.
but this would still remain general retail, but we looked at this part right here that's getting closer to the neighborhood that's the neighborhood service, so it would be more restricted. And a couple of the components that we were talking about that involves is anytime we start expanding into a neighborhood area, we're concerned about how that impacts. Number one, are they looking to start some sort of a strip type development, because we really try to avoid that. But as Ellen mentioned, directly behind it, these three lots are exactly parallel with another non-residential use directly across from the alley.
Got insurance company.
So it stops here. There's also a couple of businesses here, but there are 2 or 3 residences right here, but then you have Amarillo College on south of that. So on both sides, both across the alley and across the street, there are other non-residential uses. Another component is that Washington, it's a very busy arterial street anyway. And so we don't think that the expansion of that footprint into these 3 lots would really create any additional traffic impacts that aren't already there. So given the proximity to I-40, the arterial, the other retail businesses, the other non-residential uses, and also the fact that this is a true neighborhood service type use. There are a lot of people in this neighborhood that use this area for gas and convenience products, drinks and those kinds of things, because there's not another totem really anywhere close around here. So it serves the neighborhood and those other things that I just mentioned. We went over that with planning and zoning commissioners. We had about 3 people speak in favor of the request from the neighborhood. We did have the property owner, though, who is this 4th lot down here. They are concerned about the expansion to what would bring it now to their property line. They were very concerned about the impacts of the lighting, the traffic. They looked at some site plans, and the proposed entryway is about 20 or 30 feet from their driveway. So they were very concerned about how that would impact their 16-year-old daughter who's learning how to drive. But we would try to look at those kinds of things, and as staff, I can tell you, we would try to, as much as possible, work with the applicant to try to locate, entryways and drives to where it would have the least amount of impact as possible.
You haven't done that yet?
No, this is just the zoning.
Okay.
And we had to make that very clear. This isn't a planned development where we can actually dictate drives, but we would try to work with them on what, as best we can on the location of those driveways.
What about lighting, the lighting issue at night?
The lighting issue, we don't have any development standards that would require, a certain type of shielded lighting, but the applicant, what we can say is the applicant has said that he's very aware, he wants to be a good neighbor. He would try to look and try to locate those lights and the type that is shielded. It's a recessed type lighting, and basically that's the type of lighting they already use. They're putting it in on the Emerald Boulevard store. So it mitigates a lot of that bleeding over, the washing over the light anyway. But he's, they're wanting to be a good neighbor, but we don't have any lighting standards per se that we could actually require them to do.
Teach me something. You, in the past, have not really liked the plan development structure much. You express it to you, but that would be the only mechanism that would really help with lighting and such intricacies as that, wouldn't it?
It would. Plan developments is where you can get specific on details. It was staff's opinion that, and of course we talked about planning and zoning commissioners about that if you think that this is a situation where plan development would be better suited, they certainly have the ability to consider that. But Again, we thought with where it is, the arterial and the restricted nature of neighborhood services anyway, that we thought this request was appropriate. You know, our stance on plan developments is that, you know, plan developments are really for unique developments that have some type of extenuating circumstance or something that our current ordinances really don't address very well. We do have development standards in our regular zoning ordinance. Like for the neighborhood services next to a residential area, they have a 20-foot setback. They have a minimum 6-foot screening wall. The restricted nature of neighborhood services anyway. We felt that instead of getting another planned development, which frankly is, we've got almost 400 planned developments and they get very, very hard to enforce or keep up with.
Would if the resident protested this loudly, could you ask the applicant to voluntarily restrict the deed with a height restriction on lights or something like that? Is that plausible that those two could negotiate it while we witness it?
Well, the Planning and Zoning Commission actually tabled this request to give the opportunity for the property owner to the south and the two totem representatives an opportunity to talk and see if there's something that they could do. And they did talk about screening, maybe instead of a 6-foot high fence that's required, maybe doing an 8-foot fence. They asked them about possibly moving that fence off the property line a little bit to give them a little bit more room, a little more buffer between the two. But and I do know that they've talked. I know that they, I think in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Greg Mitchell of Toot and Totem stated that they had offered to participate in a cost sharing of constructing a carport on the alley side because they used to access the property from the alley, and you know, they said they would participate in the cost of that carport for them to be able to do that. However, that is not something that the city gets involved in. And
that's why I asked the question, could a deed restriction voluntarily put on the deed by the owner, could that help preclude this if we just witnessed it, we just saw that it happen? We can't ask it.
That's the key part, that's right. You're making the right distinction there. If the city were to say, well, I won't approve your zoning unless you agree to this or that.
We can't do that.
That's contract zoning. Right. You're not allowed to negotiate like that.
Not only can we not ask for it, we can't enforce it either.
Right.
True.
But the deed would.
But if the developer of the property were to come forward and say, we've talked to the neighbors, and I'm such a great person, I'm going to do this and that on the property, and that's information you can certainly consider, but you can't require it.
But it wouldn't, I'm just trying to learn here though too, that wouldn't require that a future owner or anybody else, but if you put a deed restriction on it, that could, it's almost like a covenant. How would they never?
And that's what the commissioners.
It's a legitimate idea, but it's outside this building.
Okay.
It's just between the.
It doesn't offer a solution.
The developer and the neighbor here.
And that's precisely why the Planning and Zoning Commissioners tabled it, to give them an opportunity to discuss it. And you know, best case scenario, at the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the property owner to the south would have come up and said, we had discussions, we think that all of our concerns have been addressed, and we have no opposition to it. That's not, unfortunately, that's not what happened. They still have some concerns. But I do know that the applicant's talking with them and those kinds of things. So, but we had to remind Planning and Zoning Commissioners,
It's not their deal.
you know, that's their private agreement. What we're looking at is what's in the zoning one.
Kelly, are they going to use it, or is Toot Totem going to use the whole footprint now of the building that they have now? I mean the space where the building is now and the other 3 houses, the 3 lots?
The new building will actually not be much larger than that building at all. And maybe just a little bit. It's just the fuel islands. We'll have a few more fuel pumps, and the ingress egress will be will have much more room. And the building will remain to the north, and to the south is where basically the parking and the access and the ingress will be.
Isn't there a doctor's office next to that too, Todd?
It's in that south end of that building.
In the same end, so is that going to move or stay?
We don't know.
You don't know?
I believe
I believe it's moving.
Okay, and did they buy up the other 3 houses? Is that what they did?
They've already bought.
He's already bought the property.
You know what Emerald does a poor job of, I think, is that, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but where people put driveways and, I mean, you know, because doesn't seem to be, as an ex-traffic commissioner, much, like Sonsi is a really good example, where everybody runs into each other. And it's like, did anybody ever talk?
Exactly, and it's a great point, 2 different levels of authority. The Sonsi driveways are primarily under TxDOT, as is the remainder of the loop and many other deals. They are working on updating our driveway manual right now. It needs to be updated. I would almost guarantee that it will go through some pretty spirited discussion and debate before it arrives for y'all. But even at the point that does, it's likely still to be a very spirited debate before you ultimately approve it.
So on Sonsi, those are turning lanes. I thought those were entry ramps.
It's like.
It's 70 miles an hour and then merge.
But, and so, you know, I drive around here all the time because I live here.
45th.
And I just, you know, hope that they do the right thing as far as where you turn in, where you turn out there.
Well, and we pay more attention to that than we used to, but we still have to go by what our, you know, parking driveway manual allows. But again, if there's some latitude or gray area, we certainly look at trying to locate that driveway that still meets the ordinance and still provides as minimal impact on surrounding property owners as much as possible.
Impact is a good word
The basic thing is, he's already bought the property. All we're going to be addressing today is to change it to the neighborhood.
These 3 lots, neighborhood services,
whatever happens in
zoning,
between is their business.
Yes.
and planning and zoning commissioners, they approved it 5 in favor, 1 opposed to it.
And why were they opposed? Just by the concerns of the property owner?
His comment was that he felt that Tooten could have made a better offer to satisfy the property owner.
Okay. There's a lot of 5 and 1s coming out.
There are.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's usually not the one that's usually the one.
Oh, is that right?
This was a new.
That's what I was fishing for, but I just wondered.
It's still a democracy.
The one is not the one, if you would like a headline for tomorrow.
Was the one ever sitting here now? Oh, no.
Mr. Mayor, if we could, we'd move to item number 3 if there's no further questions.
Thank you, Kelly.
They finally kicked me out.
Item number 3, resolution public hearing. This is not the public hearing, this is setting the date for the public hearing. That date would be September 20, 2011. The 3 subject properties that are attached to your agenda, as well as the location map for each of the 3.
Jared, we have a typo on that, so 1602 Van Buren, 1620 South Van.
Whoa, wait, I just went and looked at, this one looked like it needed to go.
Well, it's like,
No, I'm serious. I was gonna ask about the outbuilding on it. I mean, if it was part of it. Marked on the map wrong and everything.
It's correct on the map.
It's
And I
just
presume
a
it's correct on the notice,
transposition
so-
error.
Wait a second now. I went by and there was no address on it, so I would just go into it. But it is the corner lot with the outbuilding behind it. Okay,
Yeah,
it
the
is.
map
It needs to go.
correctly
Map
identified the
1620,
key.
1620.
It needs to go.
The resolution is not.
You wouldn't believe it. Is the outbuilding included or is that separate?
Yes, it's
Well, we
You
said
know, there's people-
1602 and
There's people
20.
living in that
The
outbuilding.
one wood frame accessory structure would be the outbuilding.
Somebody's broken the windows out and they've crawled through and hung clothes all in that thing, in the back. It's crazy.
Someone's squatting.
Well, they're on hangers and everything. I mean, it's the craziest thing.
Okay.
Interesting spelling of story.
Mayor, item 4, notice public hearing on the tax rate. We contacted all of y'all last week, put it in your letter. The 2 tax rate hearings have been rescheduled. We are not doing the hearing today. We'll do the first one next week at your evening meeting, so 5:30. And then also next week, we will meet on September the 9th, Friday, 3 p.m. and do your second tax rate here.
Dress
I
code will be
apologize for
casual.
the.
I think we're all gonna wear our blue
Apparently
water
blue.
shirts.
So you keep sure and wear yours.
I will. Cool idea. And don't you
Can I
embarrass
can I
me.
back up?
That'll get you in every drop counts.
Since we're diverting here a little bit, can I back up and encourage the commissioners to go look at those 3 properties? The one out on I-40, you don't really need to look at. The other 2, you need to look at.
But you're gonna have photos, right, on them?
We will.
It wouldn't hurt for you to drive by.
You think?
It would be worth
You want us to get the full effect?
the whole ambiance.
Do I lock my doors?
Yes, lock your doors.
The rocket will take you through.
I was fixing to say, is the rocket safe?
It's pretty, there you go.
Okay, if we could, the consent agenda. Item A, Civic Center Asbestos Removal Project, RL Abatement Incorporated. This is working on the existing dressing rooms, restrooms, laundry rooms, related hallways, headliner room, and 3 of the air handlers at the Civic Center. And Vicki, I believe these are all actually the back of the house at the auditorium.
Yes. And when were those built?
They were opened in 1968.
And that's why they had asbestos in them.
When did they quit the asbestos thing?
That's
It was around
70-something.
74?
That was
We were cutting asbestos sheets at a hardware store.
Yeah.
Cutting it off and put behind fireplaces in 1975.
Is there something you have to
Maybe it
do
was
with
74 for lead-based paint,
77.
76 for asbestos.
We'd take a sheet of it and cut it, and you'd put it behind the fireplace and then brick it.
Have you
So-
had your lunch check?
Yeah, all that. I really believe all that.
Well, one thing I would note, you can see the bid tab on this one.
Yeah.
We have really turned the corner and started to get some extremely competitive asbestos removal
No joke.
bids. The one we did here about 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks ago was to take out the remaining asbestos in Terminal 30, at the airport. And that was running on a budget number that was 3.5 years old, and it was still under budget. So we're really getting some competitive numbers on that. And as you know, we have to do this first before we even contemplate improving, changing, or doing anything different.
Just a side note, if it is in fact the same one, Vanco Insulation, in my day, was a manufacturer of insulation machines.
Including asbestos?
Including, yeah.
And
Well,
now
they
they're taking it
they
out?
made a cellulose machine, of course, there's a lot of asbestos in cellulose back in the day.
Wow.
Understand.
Now they're making money on the same thing.
I would say that's a good business plan. Put it in, get paid, take it out, get paid.
You probably knew something then.
What do you think?
A lot of fun going in.
Talking about EPA and asbestos.
You got a thumbs down.
Talking about EPA and asbestos, did anybody else get an invitation to a conference call tomorrow on Excel Energy?
On carb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on it if you can. It could hugely affect us next year on this commission and with our budget. It is horrendous what has been done. Get it and attend tomorrow. It's 9 till 10.
And it's a topic that your Alliance of Excel Municipalities has been working on for about 2 years.
What's happened is the administration's written all the cap and trade issues down in administrative language. And it's,
All we gotta do is listen.
we can listen on a conference call.
Yeah, I guess if you're just listening to a conference call, dial in wherever you are and don't talk. Keep your phone muted and listen.
Okay.
Or if one of you's here with the manager and, you can ask a question.
Are you gonna listen?
10?
9.
9. We have mountain time on it. Yes.
I'm gonna come and listen with you
Well, you all will listen and report.
then. Okay,
to
we'll
us.
report.
Yeah.
Book report.
Stay tuned, yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
4 doesn't require any action, does it?
4 does not require action.
Okay, and then
Item B on the consent agenda, airport leased hangar skylight replacement, partially sheet metal and roofing. This is hangar 605. This is the big tall hangar. It's leased to Leading Edge Aviation. Building does have skylights up in that metal top. You need to replace 46 of them.
They're doing well, aren't they?
They're doing phenomenally well. They are in the running for a pretty large contract right now. And I think consolidation has helped them because all the airliners are getting painted again and again and then again so that they match whatever they ultimately end up being. Most of the big fleets are keeping those airframes longer, so they get painted one more time before they roll off of service. And then there's new airlines coming online. You know, Boeing's had some trouble with some of their painting stuff. It's been in the news.
So there's a new motto for the company. It's the proud bird would be golden or blue or red.
Leading Edge, y'all will find this interesting. Several years ago, y'all saw the movie, I'm sure, with Harrison Ford in it.
Anything
Air
with
Force
Harrison
One,
Ford I've seen.
where he was on the plane and.
What was he doing? It didn't really matter.
Anyway, that plane, Air Force One, was painted right out there.
Really?
And it was quite a sight. When they rolled it out, you think, my God, the president's here. It was just a plane that they were going to use in that
Wow,
movie.
really?
747.
We should have a photo op to go out there and walk up and down the steps.
Some of us did.
Did you do that?
No.
With a red phone.
I don't do that.
Not that we've got it all
Jim
memorized.
walked it. Okay, and walk up in there. Let's move on.
Thanks, Mary. Item C, approval tax increment reinvestment zone #1 incentive project. This is for the Vineyard Manor Apartments. I think there's actually a photograph of them in your Center City packet.
Yeah, they're gonna look
That
nice.
Beth just handed out.
Yeah, it's a piece of
And
crap.
Vicki, Kelly, and of course, Ms. Carol Autry here to help us. About $97,000 worth of streetscape improvements, with half of the funding to come from tiers #1. You can try that again?
And that's Tom Puckett's project, right? Is it all, is it part of it's low income federal grants, all of it? What is it?
Certain number of units through the
Over
structure.
50% of the units have to be for low to moderate income.
But I think he's got retail on the bottom.
There you
Yeah,
go.
he does.
But
He
you had
had
to get
4,200
Federal
square
money
feet.
to serve.
Right, this particular building, it's located at 1201 South Polk. And basically, the project, it's about $1 million restoration renovation project. And as Beth already stated, they also received a facade grant from Center City to help with the facade work. But basically what they came to the Tiers Board is for a grant to help assistance with the streetscape elements, the streets and the lights and the sidewalks and those kinds of things. That was estimated to be about $97,000, and they requested about 50% of that from the Tiers Board, which would be about specifically $48,425 is what they requested from the Tiers Board. That again would go specifically for the streetscape element. As you can see by the building, well, as far as the project itself, it's going to have 16 apartment units, 2 handicap accessible on the east, the north side on this side, and then it has 12 one-bedrooms, 12 one-bedrooms and 2 two-bedrooms on the second and third level. What's neat about this project is in the very beginning when this building was built about 1925, 1926, it was one of Amarillo's first mixed-use buildings. It had apartments on the top and it had retail on the bottom. That's what they're wanting to do is go back to the future, to have retail storefronts again on the bottom, except for the 2 apartment units on the side with the apartment units on the top. So it really is a true mixed-use project, and they do have some experience with renovating buildings. They have the Renaissance Office Park that's right across the street here. They have the Fillmore Lofts, which they've done. Most people know about the Parkview apartments that are across the park over there off of 15th Street. So they kind of know what they're doing, and they're going to have an affordable housing component to it. They're using HUD dollars. Just about everything about the project, and I think this was echoed in the TIERS action, is everything about this product, it being a mixed-use project, not only having retail on the bottom, but having housing, affordable housing at that. So it's very important for housing to get established in downtown. It also is on the Polk Street corridor, one of the major, most important corridors in the downtown area. So all of those things together, I believe I even heard it stated at the TIERS board that this was pretty much a no-brainer, that this met every goal there was to meet as far as their charge from the Downtown Strategic Action Plan and Downtown Design Standards. You see the trees here, but obviously some of those aren't in the greatest shape. The actual site plan would be, they have the building here, the 2 ADA parking spots for the 2 units over here. You would have, this is actually outside the central business district, so they're required to have residential parking and retail parking. This parking up front would be for the retail, but then this would be gated parking as you come through for the residents that would be gated. So they're able to accommodate both the retail uses and the apartment uses. The trees spaced at 25 feet off center, and then the pedestrian lights. So it really, instead of that, you're really going to see a really good refinished, renovated storefront site plan with the street trees, and then not the best pictures for the elevation, but again, you have the streetscape elements that would go along with that. So the TIERS board recommended approval of the request on August the 11th. Per the ordinance, when we established the tax increment reinvestment zone, we then took it to the Potter County Commissioners for their comments, and they discussed it and approved it with a vote of 4 commissioners voting to recommend approval of it, 1 voting against it. And so it's before you today for final approval.
Well, I think this is one of the best projects to come to the TIERS board, because it is Mr. Pauken. He is doing what needs to be done. He has gotten federal dollars, whether you agree that we should get federal dollars or not doesn't matter, but he did, because providing living space for disabled people is big. If you can do something to provide housing for disabled people, you're going to get big brownie points. And then having some affordable living projects there, I mean, I think it's a great, great project. I wish we had more buildings where we could do that here in Amarillo, because the money would come if you had all those components together.
Is he using historic tax credits too? Has he got his other income streams in place, or are there any arguments there? Because we've had that in the past.
He's working with, he's using the historic tax credits, he's using home funds.
And that contract you've not seen yet, it may be ready for next week's agenda.
But he's in pretty good shape.
Center City Facade Grant and TIERS assistance, so he's taking advantage of about every funding opportunity that he can get.
And on the particular request for the landscaping, the streetscaping, I mean, he's paying half of it and we're only paying half. I mean, that's another great public-private deal. It's a win-win for everybody.
Commissioner Green wants him to redo the double dip.
We were thinking of
Restore it as
restore it.
I think you should do that.
As a drive-in? Oh, drive-in.
My grandmother
Remember,
spent many
we're
years.
moving right along, we're getting close. If I could, please ask us to go out of deep.
Okay, let's do that. Are you sure?
Item D, I would like to point something out on this one. In general, what we're asking for is your approval of a contract with Talon LPE to allow the construction of a 4,400 square foot storage facility that would kind of be built there in the L that is the shape of your WIC building on Austin Street. Today, the storage that's used to support all that clientele is kind of scattered out, and we need to get it consolidated. As we talked during budget, WIC's one of the few programs that the grant funds seem to be going up rather than going down. We have been offered through Texas Department of Agriculture the funding to do this. This is funding that has been recovered from other programs that didn't spend it. So we're under a bit of a prescriptive time frame if we're going to take advantage of it. To do that, what we are trying is our first real attempt at using what's called the job order contracting system. You've seen us buy commodities before off these big cooperative purchasing boards, the Buy Board and HGAC and TASB and some of those. There's a similar deal for construction. It's where they bid construction across the state at predefined unit prices that come out of the means books. You modify it then for your local market. If you select a contractor off of that job order contract board, you further then have the ability to take their sets of numbers versus your sets of numbers and try to negotiate them. Talent LPE was very willing to do that. This is their first go at this in this area. The ultimate number that they gave us off that contract is about $50,000 less than what it would have been straight off of that board. So we would like your permission to try that. We don't have time, if we're going to use these funds, to go through your traditional design, bid, build. It's fully funded.
Fully funded.
And we need to, take a look and see. There may be times that a timely initiation of the contracts to our benefit in the future, and I'd like to try this with TDAs.
Yeah, I think if that's money we have on hand, we go.
Okay. Last item?
The last item's aviation clear zone easement standard item that shows up every time property out in that area changes hands.
May I ask a question of the city attorney on a procedure today? Do we accept comments when we have the item come up to set the hearings for the tax rate or not?
No.
Okay. I wanted to be sure that I didn't cut anybody.
Yeah, we invite them to come back the next following couple of weeks.
Okay.
If I could, before we break and get ready for the meeting, would you like to have the ordinance on next week to start the reappointment of municipal judges?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a little presentation at the beginning. We'll do the prayers, the pledge, and go down front and make a presentation.
Today?
Yeah. It's up there. I'll get it for you.